There is a quiet truth that many people forget in the noise of modern life. Every doorway is more than wood, metal, or stone. A door is the mouth of a home. It is the place where energy enters, where intentions gather, and where unseen emotions wait quietly like travelers at the edge of a road. Long before people chased wealth through endless labor and restless ambition, wise communities understood something simple: the condition of the entrance reflects the condition of the spirit within. When dust gathers upon the door, the heart often carries hidden heaviness. When the threshold is neglected, confusion quietly settles into daily life. But when the entrance is treated with care, respect, and peaceful attention, the atmosphere of the home begins to change in ways that cannot always be explained by logic alone. There is an old ritual practiced in many lands. It is not complicated. It does not require expensive objects, sacred titles, or rare knowledge. It begins with awareness. Before sunrise or during the calm hours of morning, a person approaches the doorway slowly, not as a servant of chores, but as a guardian of peace. The cleaning of the door is not merely physical work. It is a conversation with life itself. Verse 1 pauses in silence. This silence is important because the mind is usually crowded with worries about money, fear, competition, and regret. But luck rarely enters a noisy mind. Fortune moves gently like a soft wind through an open field. To hear it, one must become still. Then the hands begin their work. Dust is wiped away carefully from the frame, the handle, and the threshold. Each movement carries intention. As dirt disappears, the mind quietly releases old bitterness, old disappointments, and old anger. Many people carry invisible burdens for years without noticing how heavily those burdens weigh upon their spirit. The ritual teaches that what leaves the doorway also leaves the heart. Water has always been seen as a symbol of renewal. In many traditions, a bowl of clean water mixed with fragrant leaves, flowers, or simple salt is used during the cleansing, not because the water itself contains magic, but because intention transforms ordinary actions into meaningful rituals. The fragrance reminds the senses that life still contains beauty. The salt represents purification, the willingness to let negativity dissolve and disappear. As the doorway is cleaned, gratitude is spoken softly. Gratitude opens pathways that fear keeps closed. A thankful heart attracts peace because it no longer fights against existence. Some whisper blessings for health, some ask for harmony among family members. Others pray silently for wisdom rather than riches. Yet strangely, when wisdom and harmony arrive, prosperity often follows naturally. Many people misunderstand luck. They imagine it as random fortune falling from the sky upon a chosen few. But true luck is often the result of inner alignment. A peaceful mind notices opportunities. A calm spirit makes wise decisions. A welcoming home creates warmth that draws others closer. These simple truths appear ordinary, yet they quietly shape destiny. There is also power in removing clutter near the entrance. Shoes scattered carelessly, broken objects, forgotten trash, and neglected corners create stagnant energy. Disorder outside the door often mirrors disorder within the mind. Clearing space is an act of respect toward life. It signals readiness for new beginnings. Some families place flowers or light near the doorway after cleaning it. The flower reminds them of impermanence. Beauty exists because life changes. The light reminds them that even small kindness can guide someone through darkness. These symbols are not decorations alone. They are teachings without words. But perhaps the greatest secret of the ritual is not about attracting wealth at all. It is about transforming the person performing it. The world changes when the heart changes. A person who cleans the doorway with mindfulness slowly learns patience. A person who welcomes peace into the home becomes less controlled by greed and fear. Such a person walks differently, speaks differently, and responds to hardship differently. And life notices this transformation. People are naturally drawn toward calmness. Opportunities appear where trust exists. Relationships strengthen where respect lives. The ritual of welcome becomes larger than the doorway itself. It becomes a way of meeting each moment with openness rather than resistance. Even during difficult times, the practice carries meaning. When storms come into life, loss, uncertainty, loneliness, disappointment, the simple act of cleaning the entrance reminds the soul that renewal is always possible. Dust may return tomorrow, but so can awareness. Darkness may visit, but light can still be invited inside. The door teaches an ancient lesson. What enters your home first enters your mind. If anger enters daily, suffering grows. If gratitude enters daily, peace expands. If fear stands at the threshold, joy hesitates outside. But when kindness, simplicity, and awareness are welcomed, life slowly becomes lighter. So approach your doorway not with impatience, but with reverence. Let each sweep of the cloth become a release of worry. Let each drop of water carry away resentment. Let each breath remind you that peace does not come from distant places. It begins with small acts performed consciously. In the end, the ritual is not truly about luck. It is about becoming the kind of person who is ready to receive the blessings already moving quietly through the world. The doorway reflects inner energy. The condition of a home's entrance symbolizes the emotional and spiritual state of the people living inside. A clean, peaceful doorway invites harmony and positive energy. Many people spend years searching for peace, success, and good fortune in distant places, never realizing that the first sign of harmony begins at the entrance of their own home. The doorway is more than a simple structure built for entering and leaving. It quietly reflects the emotional condition of the people who live behind it. A neglected entrance often mirrors a tired spirit, while a clean and welcoming doorway reflects clarity, balance, and awareness. Long ago, people understood this connection deeply. They believed that every home carried an invisible atmosphere, and the condition of the threshold influenced the energy that entered daily life. When someone approaches their doorway with care and mindfulness, they are not merely removing dust. They are creating a moment of awareness in a world filled with distraction. The act itself becomes symbolic. Every stain wiped away represents old worries being released. Every sweep of the floor symbolizes the clearing of confusion from the mind. In this simple ritual, the outer world and inner world begin to move together. A doorway receives everything before the rest of the home does. It receives visitors, sounds, winds, light, and unseen emotions. If the entrance feels heavy, cluttered, or forgotten, the atmosphere within often becomes restless without anyone fully understanding why. But when the entrance is peaceful and cared for, a different feeling quietly enters the home. Calmness becomes easier to maintain. Conversations soften. The mind becomes less crowded. There is wisdom in beginning each morning by noticing the state of the entrance. Some people rush through life without seeing the spaces they pass every day. They stop paying attention to the small things that shape their emotional world. Yet peace is often hidden inside ordinary actions. A person who gently cleans the doorway each morning develops patience without realizing it. They begin to move slower, breathe deeper, and observe life more carefully. The old traditions taught that energy follows attention. Where care is placed, harmony grows. This is why many families once treated the threshold almost like a sacred space. Before welcoming wealth or success, they first welcomed cleanliness, balance, and gratitude. They understood that fortune rarely stays where disorder rules. A peaceful home begins with a peaceful entrance. Even the appearance of the doorway affects the human heart. Natural light, fresh air, clean surroundings, and simple beauty influence the emotions more than most people imagine. A doorway filled with clutter creates subtle tension in the mind. Broken items, dirt, and neglect quietly remind the spirit of heaviness and delay. But a clean threshold gives a sense of renewal. It silently says that life can begin again. There is also humility in caring for the entrance. In modern life, people often seek grand solutions for unhappiness while ignoring small daily habits. But wisdom grows through simple, repeated acts. Cleaning the doorway teaches respect for the present moment. It reminds the mind that peace is not created through force but through attention. Over time, this small practice changes more than the home. It changes the person. The individual becomes more mindful of their words, actions, and thoughts. They begin to notice how emotional clutter affects relationships just as physical clutter affects space. Slowly, they understand that the true doorway is not made of wood or stone. The real doorway is the heart itself. Whatever enters there shapes the entire experience of life. And when the heart becomes clear, calm, and welcoming, the world itself begins to feel different. Cleaning as a mindful ritual, washing and clearing the door, is not just physical work. It is a meditative act that helps release negativity, stress, anger, and emotional burdens from the heart. When people think about improving their life, they often imagine big actions, sudden changes, or distant opportunities. Yet many ancient teachings point towards something far simpler and closer: the condition of the spaces we pass through every single day. Among these, the doorway of a home holds a special meaning. It is the boundary between the inner world and the outer world, between private thoughts and public life. When this boundary is treated with care, the entire flow of life begins to shift quietly but deeply. There is an old understanding that every entrance carries a kind of memory. It remembers who comes and goes, what emotions are brought inside, and what energy is allowed to stay. When a doorway is ignored, dust gathers not only on its surface but also in the mind of the people living behind it. Gradually, this neglect becomes a habit of thought. Small frustrations grow unnoticed. Clarity becomes harder to find. People begin to feel that something is missing without realizing that the missing piece is often attention itself. Cleaning the doorway becomes a way of returning attention to the present moment. It is not simply about removing physical dirt, it is about restoring awareness. When a person bends down to sweep the entrance, they are also symbolically sweeping away mental heaviness. Old thoughts, unnecessary worries, and emotional clutter begin to loosen their grip. This is not something that happens through force, but through gentle repetition and mindful care. The ritual of maintaining a clean entrance also changes the way a person relates to their home. Instead of seeing it as a fixed structure, they begin to experience it as a living space that responds to care. The door becomes a point of respect rather than a forgotten object. Even the simplest actions like wiping the handle or arranging the area neatly carry a sense of dignity. This dignity slowly spreads into other parts of life. Many traditions emphasize that what we allow at the entrance reflects what we allow in the mind. If disorder is accepted at the threshold, it often appears later as confusion in thoughts and decisions. But if the entrance is kept clear, there is a greater chance for mental clarity to develop. Decisions feel lighter. Emotions become easier to understand. There is less internal noise. There is also a quiet emotional benefit in performing this act regularly. Repetition builds stability. When life feels uncertain, having a simple daily practice brings grounding. The act of caring for the doorway becomes a reminder that some things are still within control. Even when the outside world feels unpredictable, the entrance can still be tended with care. This creates a subtle sense of strength that does not depend on external conditions. Over time, this practice begins to influence relationships as well. A well-kept entrance invites warmth. It encourages hospitality, openness, and friendliness. Visitors feel the difference even before they speak a word. The energy of the space communicates silently. In this way, the doorway becomes not just a physical entry point, but a reflection of inner harmony. Eventually, a person realizes that they are not only cleaning a space, they are shaping a state of mind. The doorway becomes a teacher, quietly showing that transformation does not always require grand effort. Sometimes it begins with simply noticing what stands at the edge of your world and choosing to care for it with steady attention. Power of gratitude and intention. Speaking grateful thoughts and positive intentions during the ritual creates a welcoming atmosphere for peace, wisdom, prosperity, and meaningful opportunities. There is a quiet wisdom in understanding that transformation does not always begin with dramatic change, but often with the smallest and most repeated acts. Among these, the care of a home's entrance holds a special place. The doorway is where every journey begins and ends. It is where the outside world meets the inner world, and where the energy of life first touches the space we call our own. When this place is tended with awareness, something subtle but powerful begins to shift in daily experience. A clean and respected doorway is not only about appearance. It reflects a certain state of mind, one that values order, presence, and attentiveness. When people neglect the entrance of their home, it is rarely intentional. It happens slowly as attention gets divided among many worries and responsibilities. Yet this small neglect often mirrors a deeper mental pattern. The mind becomes scattered, priorities feel unclear, and emotional heaviness quietly accumulates. In contrast, when a person begins to care for the doorway again, even in a simple way, they are also practicing the return of attention to what is immediate and real. The act of cleaning the entrance can become a moment of grounding. As hands move over surfaces, removing dust and arranging the space, the mind begins to follow the rhythm of action. Thoughts that were previously tangled start to loosen. The focus required for even simple cleaning creates a pause in mental noise. In this pause, awareness becomes more visible. It is not something imagined or forced, but something naturally experienced when attention is fully placed in the present task. There is also a deeper emotional meaning in maintaining the threshold of a home. The doorway represents boundaries, not in a restrictive sense, but in a protective and clarifying way. Boundaries allow life to flow in a healthy direction. Without them, everything becomes mixed and unclear. A well-cared-for entrance symbolizes a mind that knows what to allow in and what to leave outside. This understanding gradually influences how a person deals with thoughts, emotions, and external influences. Over time, this simple practice begins to shape the atmosphere of the entire home. The entrance sets the tone for what follows. When the doorway feels clean, organized, and cared for, it creates a sense of openness. People entering the space often feel it without needing explanation. There is a feeling of welcome that does not depend on words. This quiet impression can soften interactions and create a more peaceful environment for everyone who enters. Another important aspect of this practice is consistency. The real change does not come from a single act of cleaning, but from repeated attention over time. Each day spent caring for the entrance strengthens a habit of mindfulness. It teaches that peace is not a distant achievement, but something built through steady, simple actions. Even on difficult days, this practice remains possible, and in that possibility lies its strength. Eventually, something deeper becomes clear. The doorway is not just part of the house. It is a reflection of the mind that tends it. When the entrance is clear, the mind often becomes clearer too. When it is neglected, inner confusion can quietly grow. In this way, the ritual of caring for the doorway becomes a mirror, gently showing the connection between outer order and inner harmony. Removing clutter opens new paths, clearing broken objects, dirt, and disorder near the entrance represents making space in life for fresh beginnings, calmness, and better fortune. There is an ancient understanding that the spaces we care for outside ourselves slowly shape the spaces within us. Among all the areas of a home, the doorway carries a unique importance because it stands at the meeting point of two worlds. It is neither fully inside nor fully outside. It is a transition, a passage, a threshold where every arrival and departure begins. When this place is treated with awareness and respect, it becomes more than a physical structure. It becomes a quiet influence on the quality of daily life. Many people overlook the entrance of their home because they assume that success, peace, and happiness are determined by larger events. Yet life is often shaped by small, repeated actions that go unnoticed. The doorway is one of those subtle influences. When it is left unattended, dust gathers, objects accumulate, and the space begins to lose its sense of clarity. This physical disorder often mirrors a subtle inner condition where thoughts become scattered and emotions feel heavier than necessary. Cleaning the entrance is not only about removing visible dirt, it is an act that brings attention back to what is present and immediate. When a person engages with the doorway mindfully, something shifts in their awareness. The simple act of sweeping or wiping becomes a way of resetting attention. The body moves, but the mind begins to settle. In that settling, there is a quiet opportunity to release unnecessary mental weight. Over time, this practice teaches a deeper lesson about clarity. Just as a clear entrance allows people to move in and out without obstruction, a clear mind allows thoughts to arise and pass without confusion. When the doorway is cluttered, movement becomes difficult. Similarly, when the mind is filled with unresolved worries, it becomes harder to respond to life with ease. The outer space becomes a reflection of the inner condition. There is also a subtle emotional transformation that happens through this ritual. A well-maintained entrance creates a sense of readiness. It suggests that life is being welcomed rather than resisted. Even without words, it communicates openness. People who enter such a space often feel a sense of calm without knowing why. This is because environments carry emotional impressions, and the entrance is the first impression of any home. The consistency of this practice is what gives it depth. A single act of cleaning may bring temporary order, but repeated attention builds a lasting sense of balance. Each time a person returns to the doorway with care, they reinforce a habit of mindfulness. This repetition slowly influences how they approach other areas of life. Tasks are no longer seen as burdens, but as opportunities to bring clarity into action. In this way, the doorway becomes more than a physical boundary. It becomes a teacher of awareness. It shows that order is not something that happens once, but something that is maintained through presence. It also reveals that peace is not always found by changing external circumstances, but by refining the way one relates to them. Eventually, a deeper realization emerges. The condition of the entrance reflects the condition of attention itself. When attention is scattered, the space becomes neglected. When attention is steady, the space becomes clear. And in that clarity, both the home and the mind begin to feel lighter, more open, and quietly aligned with a sense of natural balance. True luck comes from inner peace. Real fortune is not random. A calm, aware, and balanced mind naturally attracts wise decisions, healthy relationships, and opportunities that lead to a better life. In many old traditions, there is a quiet understanding that the simplest places in life often carry the deepest meaning. The entrance of a home is one such place. It is not only a physical boundary made of wood or stone, but also a symbolic passage where energy, emotion, and experience pass every single day. It is where life meets life. Every guest who arrives, every member who returns, and every moment that begins or ends in a home passes through this single point. Because of this, the doorway becomes a reflection of how life is being lived within. When the entrance is cared for with awareness, something subtle begins to change in the environment. It is not an immediate or dramatic transformation, but a gradual shift that affects both the space and the mind. Cleaning the doorway, arranging it with care, and removing neglect is more than maintenance. It is a practice of respect toward the place one lives in and toward the life one is building. In this simple action, there is a message being sent inward. Attention matters and presence shapes reality. Many people live surrounded by constant mental noise. Thoughts about the future, memories of the past, and worries about daily responsibilities often fill the mind without pause. In such a state, small things like the condition of a doorway may seem unimportant. Yet it is often these small things that silently influence emotional balance. A cluttered or ignored entrance can mirror a scattered mind, while a clean and orderly one can reflect inner clarity. The connection is not mystical in a distant sense, but deeply practical. Outer order supports inner order. The act of cleaning the entrance becomes a grounding experience. As hands move through the space, wiping away dust or organizing what is present, attention is naturally drawn away from mental distractions. The body engages in simple action and the mind follows. In this process, thoughts begin to slow down. There is no need to force calmness, it arises on its own through focus on the present moment. This is where the doorway becomes more than a physical location, becomes a point of return to awareness. There is also a quiet psychological effect in maintaining a welcoming entrance. When a space is kept clean and cared for, it creates a sense of dignity. This dignity influences how people feel when they enter and how the residents feel when they return. It becomes easier to experience comfort, ease, and openness. Even unspoken emotions are shaped by the environment. A cared-for threshold can soften tension and encourage a more peaceful interaction with daily life. Over time, this practice builds discipline without harshness. It does not demand perfection, only consistency. Each time the entrance is tended to, a habit of attentiveness is strengthened. This attentiveness slowly extends into other areas of living. Decisions become clearer, reactions become calmer, and there is less unnecessary disturbance in the mind. What begins as a small act of cleaning gradually becomes a way of living with more awareness. Eventually, the doorway reveals its deeper lesson. It is not separate from the person who maintains it. It reflects their inner state. When the entrance is neglected, life feels heavier. When it is cared for, life feels lighter. In this way, the doorway quietly teaches that harmony is not found in distant places, but in the attention given to what is right in front of us.